What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another week of Revolt Sports Weekly. I'm your host, Mariah Rose, and today I'm so excited to be joined by legendary sports journalist Bomani Jones, the host of The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Bomani, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. You know, I have to get your opinions on all things football as the college football season has concluded, as the NFL season's about to come to an end. I got to hear your takes on all things NFL. But first and foremost, we got to start with the story of the week. Bill Belichick being snubbed. I don't know your opinion yet, but snubbed for a first ballot Hall of Fame. Listen, tell me what your first reaction is to this.
I mean, when I first saw it and had a little bit of an understanding of the dynamics of how they vote for this, somebody just decided they wanted to make him wait. Obviously, it's a handful of somebodies because it had to be at least 11 people to not vote for him in order for him to not get in out of the 50 that were on the panel. And then you figure out that Bill Polian's got a lot of sway in that room, and that's a man who does not like Bill Belichick. Like, they had a real strong rivalry there for a real, a significant period of time. So I'm not as mad as other people are because he's going to get in, right? Like, it's not as if they're going to keep doing this for like 15 years. This isn't as crazy to me as it was the year that Morton Anderson, a kicker, got in the Hall of Fame and they made Terrell Owens wait for another year. Like, that was the one that jumped off the page. This one, they probably going to make that man wait for a year. It's going to stink for him because it sounds to me like it's shaping up that Bob Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, is going to get in before Belichick does. And I can't think of anything that's going to make him madder than, basically a fan who fired him. You're going to say that he had more to do with those Super Bowls than Bill Belichick did? Belichick going to be bouncing off the walls about that.
That's my reaction to it is like, if Bill Belichick isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, who is, right? I feel like this puts a little bit of a stain on the Hall of Fame voting, no?
I mean, you could say that, all right? And I understand that argument. If he never got in, then I would agree with the idea that it puts a stain on it. I have not gone and done the thorough rundown of all the guys who did not get in on the first ballot, but it's a lot of dudes that we would say, oh, they're absolutely getting in, and they just didn't get in on the first ballot for whatever reason. Like, that is a classification that we have adopted so that we can come up with basically new ways to talk about stuff on television and radio, right? Like different gradations. Like, you're in the Hall of Fame, but were you a first ballot Hall of Famer? Oh, you weren't. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we ultimately do. But none of us are going to change the way that we evaluate Bill Belichick because he was not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, it's going to sting him a little bit. It's going to be insulting. It's going to feel like somebody was picking on him. And then he's going to get in the Hall of Fame and we're not going to think about it again.
That's a good point. I guess we are overreacting just a tad bit, but what do you say to the take that has taken over the internet that since it seems that they're holding Spygate, Deflategate, little moments across his Patriots career against him for this Hall of Fame ballot, what do you say to the reaction that, okay, so now what are we going to do with Tom Brady?
Well, okay. If that's legitimately somebody's argument for not putting Belichick on this first ballot thing, yeah, I guess. My thought, generally speaking, is either you're a Hall of Famer or you're not, right? Like, if somebody's name comes across on the ballot, now sometimes you have limited spaces and more people than you can vote for, then you start putting it in order. But the idea that next year you're going to realize that Belichick is a Hall of Famer, I think that's a little bit crazy. But at the same time, if the idea is this is the penalty that somebody chooses to exact upon him because they got caught cheating, okay, I see how that goes. To your question, well, what will this have to do with Tom Brady? It ain't going to have nothing to do with Tom Brady in application. Like, people aren't obligated to be consistent. You know what I mean? Like, they're not required to do the same thing across the board. And the truth is, people like Tom Brady more than they like Bill Belichick. And so when Tom Brady's time comes, when they get in that room, it's some people that they get in and there's robust conversation. And then there's some people that's going to be like Tom Brady. Like, all right, Tom Brady, we don't need to waste any time talking about this, do we? And they're not. And they're just going to move on and go to the next name because that one's in.
That's a good point. I guess I just would have thought that Bill Belichick had that same, okay, all in favor of Bill Belichick. I didn't think it would be that much of a discussion.
Yeah, but you know what? He made a conscious decision himself after Spygate. Like, I think people talk about Spygate in the sense of the cheating element of it and the way that people respond to that. But the thing that happened after Spygate was the way he started dealing with the media became much different. And that's when he became the gruff, clipped type of guy that we think of on to Cincinnati and those sorts of things. He wasn't always like that. He really, really was hurt by what happened with Spygate. And then he flipped it up after that. And I'm willing to bet that he's probably paying for that too. Like, not everybody in that room is a member of the media. Like, Bill Polian does media work, but that's not why he's in there. But there's some people in there who get a little bit tired of somebody just coming in and being unnecessarily impolite to them every day.
I guess that's a good point. This kind of doesn't help us as the media, with that narrative that the media is like vindictive and stuff.
Yeah, but ain't nothing ever gonna help us. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that we could possibly do to make people feel that way. And look, there are some people that are like that. There are some people who are vindictive toward us for simply doing our jobs. Like, it is a contentious relationship that involves humans and power dynamics. And to a degree, the relationship between media and the people you cover should have a measure of antagonism to it, right? Like, that's kind of what it's supposed to be. Now, should it ever be personal? No. Should it ever be unnecessarily or intentionally petty? No. I would say that shouldn't be the case. But any little mistake one of us makes, the rest of us are going to have to pay for all of those. All of them. That's just what the game's going to be forever.
That's a good point. You signed up for this job with the expectation of a little bit of hostility. It's like, if I were covering my mama or my best friend, I'm going to cover it a little differently than I am somebody I'm objective about. I'm not supposed to be your friend. So I feel you on that. Since we're talking about media narratives and what the people are talking about, let's just go ahead and talk about Shedeur Sanders. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. I got to get your take on Shedeur Sanders making the Pro Bowl and the reaction to this.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I have intentionally avoided the reaction because talking about that young man in front of people is not fun. It takes on so many different angles and elements that it just becomes a frustrating thing. Now, to me, the idea that he made the Pro Bowl is, like, if we're just talking about the quality of his play, it's ridiculous and it's indefensible. By just about any advanced metric that anybody uses, he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL this year. You could point to some moments that he had to make you feel good if you're invested in feeling good about him, but there's no real argument that he was a Pro Bowler. But what does happen around this time of year is it's not always easy to get somebody who wants to go play more football after playing 5 months of football, right? And so you go down the list. The game doesn't really matter. I don't have a great handle from here how many people said no before they got to Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if there's somebody in the league office that decided that he is a person who attracts eyeballs and attention and would maybe get more people to watch the game, and therefore you put him in there. Okay, but is he a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback? No. He just got to the Pro Bowl. Like the dude in Baltimore, Tyler Huntley, he got to the Pro Bowl one year and he only played like some tiny handful of games. Like, well, once you start getting to the end of the night, right? The club closed at 3. People start making some real weird decisions. And, club almost closed. They had to figure out what to do.
I will say, I've always said that if I were to be a backup quarterback in the NFL, oh my God, I would love to play for the Baltimore Ravens.
Best job in the world.
Because he gets time. You know what I'm saying? You've been a Pro Bowl and you're a backup quarterback. I think it's pretty nice.
Backup quarterback, man. You just put on that baseball cap. You sit over there. Maybe you got the clipboard, right? Maybe you doing a little something to help. But what you're doing is you're getting a check, right? You getting a check, and unlike the rest of them dudes that's in there in treatment on Monday, you just roll in there on Monday feeling good, right? Like jumping up and touching the door frame just to show you still got it.
Oh my gosh. And nobody's talking about you the way they talk about Lamar Jackson. There's no pressure. You know what I'm saying?
Nope. When they talk about you, they happy. They're like, imagine what if this guy was in there, right? Wouldn't that be cool?
Exactly. You're a what if. Kind of like Shedeur was for a lot of the season. Bring it back to that. I'm curious. So now what? With this whole Shedeur thing, right? Because you made a good point about the eyeballs. People do care about Shedeur. People do want to see Shedeur do well. People are invested in this story of Shedeur, but the play didn't match. But there was all of that drama about, did he get the wrong wristband? Did he get the reps with overall, where does this go now?
Well, that's a great question. Because the reason the discussion around him was what it was really came down to the fact that Cleveland didn't have a quarterback. And I don't know what is going to change about the fact that they did not have a quarterback. Now, there's some guys that I think that you could perhaps find a way to go get in this offseason. Like, it sounds like the Cardinals have had their fill of Kyler Murray, for example. He would be better than any quarterback that the Browns have right now. A couple other guys that you can look around and say, oh, I don't know. Like, even a dude like Malik Willis, who will be a free agent. I think he'd be better than anybody that they have right now. And then maybe you go there. But if they don't have a quarterback, maybe Dylan Gabriel comes in at training camp and wins the job. I suppose it's possible. Man, a whole lot of people ain't going to be hearing that under any circumstance whatsoever. I don't think it would be a good look for the Browns if they decided to cut Shedeur. They could if they wanted to, just because they didn't want what they felt like was the drama or the trouble that surrounded it. But that would wind up being a terrible look. So if you're Todd Monken and you're the new coach there, this is not going to be something you enjoy because there is a lot of noise that surrounds him. What I would do if I were him, if everything were the same and they had the same roster, we'd go into training camp with Shedeur as our starting quarterback, and I'd either let him play his way into the job or play his way out of the job. But that is the best way to minimize the personal level of stress that you are going to have in your life around this, because there will be stress if you don't at least give him the chance to start.
I guess that's a good point. I would not want that job, coach of the Cleveland Browns, because it feels like a bigger thing, right, than just who the quarterback is or just who the coach is. It feels like it's like all wrong. Yeah. I don't know if I'm wrong to assume that, but it just feels like it's all messy. And I don't know where you start to fix that.
Well, I'll put it like this. One of my buddies used to work at ESPN would talk about how there used to be a McDonald's in Bristol, and something happened. The story or the urban legend was that the ESPN cafeteria started staying open late. And then once that happened, the McDonald's wasn't getting the business that it used to, and then the McDonald's shut down, right? And every now and then you go up to Bristol and you go past where that McDonald's was, and it would be a new restaurant in the location where the McDonald's was. And the question that I always had was, who are you? And what do you think that you are selling that can stay open where McDonald's could not make this happen? What is so special about you that you got the solution that McDonald's didn't have? And that's how I feel about coaching the Browns. What do you have going for you that literally nobody in the last 27 years has been able to figure out? They had a dude win Coach of the Year 2 times, and they just fired him. So what you gonna do up there that's so special?
Lord, and he just came to Atlanta, so hopefully that turns out a little better for us, because I'm a Falcons fan.
Good luck to him. I hear y'all ain't too pleased down there with this thing.
It's just I don't feel like it made a lot of sense. Also, I had the thought, I don't know if this is crazy, but like, why not just hold on to Raheem for a year? Not much is going to change in the year anyways. Not much has changed for us, and since Brady did what he did to us, not much has changed, right? So why don't you just hold on to him for a year and then hope to God that Mike Tomlin wants to coach again and wants to be close to his daughter at Georgia? I don't see why they didn't do that.
You know, I think you raise a fair point there. I think it's interesting that Stefanski left a place where he did not have a quarterback. And in my mind, for all intents and purposes, the Falcons don't have a quarterback right now either. Until I see what Penix is going to look like coming off another catastrophic injury. He's only had like 15 of them, right? From where it stands, they until proven otherwise, they don't have a quarterback either. And it's like, damn, you just got fired for not having a quarterback. What did Matt Ryan tell you about how long you're going to be able to keep this job? But I think, and I understand this may not sound fair to everybody, but you know the truth, man. Everybody that gets that Falcons job is going to be on the hot seat because Arthur Blank wants a championship while he can still see it, and no day is promised when you're, I think, 83 years old.
That's a great point. And I Listen, you can't get far without a quarterback. And when you give a guy as much money as they gave Kirk Cousins, only to draft a guy right under his nose, it's all messy. And it sounds like desperation to me. So you raise a good point. But all
It's
this
a falcony sort of set of behaviors. That's the kind of thing they do.
Lord, listen, we've talked enough about bad teams. Let's talk about some of the teams that are good, that that have a Super Bowl to play for. Listen, we have the Super Bowl coming up next week. The Seattle Seahawks are facing the New England Patriots. First of all, these teams are 14-3. Did you expect these to be the two teams at the beginning of the season? Be honest with me now. When we were talking about the NFL coming into the season, we're talking Eagles, we're talking Ravens. Were you expecting these two teams to be still in it right now?
Oh, no chance. I mean, the Patriots, even though they made the coaching change, they were terrible last year. And then as a general habit, can't speak for everybody else, but just for me as a general habit, I don't really be picking Sam Darnold. Like the assumption that he's going to get it done is not something that I typically ride with. And here he is. Here they are. For long stretches, it was in spite of him, but certainly not in the NFC Championship game. He played pretty well on that one. But no, there's literally no way in the world you would have told me before the season that these would be the two teams left standing.
Yeah, I'm shocked by it too. With the Patriots point you raised about the coaching change and how much that changed things, is that a sign of how coaching can truly switch things up in the NFL? Because all these coaches getting fired, I mean, left and right, up and down, everybody getting fired. Like there are that many options, but that's a whole side point. I'm curious, is this what they want, this result?
Well, part of it is about coaching. Part of it is, I would say, just kind of the fluid nature of the NFL. The Patriots had a pretty easy schedule running through this season, for example. That's a thing. When they get to the playoffs, they got to play an AFC Championship game against a backup quarterback. They got to play home games in terrible weather. And when they played against the Texans, C.J. Stroud seemed to be about beating himself as much as anything else that went there. A lot of things can break and can go. Now, coaching definitely did matter, but on the other hand, yeah, they had Rob Mayo last year, but it was Bill Belichick 2 years ago. Not exactly sure that Mike Vrabel's a better coach than Bill Belichick overall. Maybe he's a better coach right now. That's the argument that you could make. So, yeah, part of it is about coaching, but a big part of it is things just flip up in the NFL really, really quickly. And I think that's probably the least satisfying but most accurate explanation for what happened with the Patriots.
As far as sports go, it feels like the NFL, especially in comparison to like the NBA, right? In the NBA, the best team is always going to win because you got to win a 7-game series. So it's like, it's really tough to beat a team that's better than you. Whereas in the NFL, I don't want to attribute the whole Super Bowl thing to luck, but it does feel like luck has a little bit more to do with it because you can have a moment where CJ Stroud has a terrible game, or it snows on this day, or this happens or that happens, or Sam Darnold has a good day, and you just need one good game.
Yep. It's a single elimination tournament, and then the nature of the game, man, the ball is oblong. You know what I mean? Like one of the most random things in football is who recovers the fumble. Right? A part that you can control is whether or not you fumble. But once it hits the ground, todo es posible in that moment. You know what I mean? Anything can go down. And so, yeah, there's certainly an element of randomness and variance that applies to football that's not going to apply to a sport that has a series. The rosters in the NFL are also, the level of talent is a little closer from team to team to team, especially when you start getting toward the end. So, yeah, some of this is just going to be cross your fingers and hope for the best. Now, nobody wants to hear that because when we talk about it after the game, we want to talk about who came through, who was a real man, who was all those things. That's, there's nothing satisfying for anybody listening or anybody talking. We're like, what happened in the game? Look, right? But it's there. It's a part of it. It is the error term.
Yeah, I see you with that Spanish, by the way, preparing for Bad Bunny. I see you with that. Speaking of the Super Bowl, I got to ask, who do you foresee winning Super Bowl? What are we on, 60?
We're on 60, man. And I got to say, as much as I'm not in the business of picking Sam Darnold, I feel like that's what I'm going to need to do this time. Like, I think that Drake May has not looked good at all this postseason. I think that Seattle defense is a monster. And I think it's really just going to come down to that part right there. Now we'll see, right? They get 2 weeks to prepare. I mean, Vrabel and his guys might cook up with some incredible game plan. And, there seems to be a blueprint on what to do with Sam Darnold. Put pressure directly in his face and then make him make those reactions, right? Maybe that's what it's going to be. But if I had to guess, I would say that I would take Seattle.
I will say beating the Rams told me a lot more about them than I would have expected, because the Rams we were talking about the Rams all season as one of the best teams in the NFL. And on the defensive point, I was told the same thing about the Texans, and I was disappointed.
But Drake didn't play well against the Texans.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
He had it there. I would say, though, important to note about the Rams is that defense had been making dreams come true for quite a while. Like for the last month, they had been giving it up to whoever wanted it, right? They was not making it difficult at all. So I think Seattle stumbled upon that part.
Right. That totally fair. It's interesting. I feel like we're in a new day in the NFL where it's like, okay, we're not talking about the Chiefs, which it was already a little weird, and we're not going to be talking about them for a while because who knows when Patrick Mahomes is going to be back. We're not talking about the Eagles at this point. I mean, being bounced in the first round. Like, it just feels different. I don't know. I feel like next season is going to be a free-for-all.
Yeah, it's about that time. When you think about it, every season since 2018, the Chiefs had been at least in the AFC Championship game. It was a giant shock that the Ravens did not make the playoffs at all. The Bills getting tossed out of there in the second round, in the divisional round, when they did. So, yeah, this feels like a year. I don't know if it's fair to say that it's like a sea change, right? Like this is that. Are we looking at the future? I'm not sure. Now we'll see. Mahomes is coming back from an ACL next year. Maybe nothing will be the same over there. We're not exactly sure what it's going to look like with Baltimore with a coaching change. But no, this is definitely different from what we've been doing. There's no question about that.
It feels like everyone's having a coaching change. I mean, my God, it feels like everyone is having a coaching change. You brought up two teams that I have to ask you about because since I have you, I have to hear your opinion about this. Bills, Ravens, right? Two teams that we are constantly hearing, oh, Josh Allen, superhero. Is he going to make it happen? Is this year the year? Or, it felt like all weapons that were formed against him conveniently were moved out of the way and it didn't get done. No fault of his own. I mean, broken foot and broken everything. But then you've got Lamar Jackson and all the pressure that's being put on him, even though he's a two-time MVP. Like, is he going to get it done? Is he going to win a Super Bowl? I'm curious. Who do you foresee that happening for first? And what is your take on that whole race to get it done between the two of them?
Well, if I had to say now, I think the Ravens still have the more talented roster. And if they have the more talented roster and I think that they are, whichever one you decide to choose, I can't say you're wrong, right? Like, I think they're in the same neighborhood between Allen and Jackson. So I would say that Baltimore, to me, is more likely to get there. I also thought it was a little weird that Buffalo basically fired their coach and maintained status quo by hiring the offensive coordinator. Like, that doesn't feel like that's making changes that need to be changed, that need to be made. The general manager got promoted rather than fired. It doesn't feel like they're going to make changes that need to be changed. What I think happened with them is these guys are in that kind of Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, y'all played at the same time as Jordan situation, just in a single elimination sport. Like, there's a lot of guys who did not get their chance to go to the mountaintop because one of the greatest of all time, well, in Jordan's case, and in Mahomes' case, he will retire with an argument of being the best quarterback of all time. That's whose watch you tried to get it done on. And so that's why the Chiefs being out of it this year and Mahomes coming back from injury next year, that feels like the chance that those guys will have. The other part, though, we have to keep in mind about those two guys is they're getting older too. And there's no telling when what happened to Mahomes can easily happen to either one of those guys. Like, we're out of the you got forever to get this done part of the program. And now we're on the, hey, nothing is promised to you anymore place of it, right? So I think it'll be Lamar if it's got to be one of them, but there's no promise it'll be either.
Right. And the scary thing with Lamar is the whole health situation. Like, it's like you never know. I feel like every time I'm like, I feel like it's about to happen for him, he gets hurt. And then, we're back in backup territory. But I'm also curious, you bring up the coaching change that the Bills made. And I was so confused by the way they handled that whole situation. I didn't think that he deserved to be fired. I'm of the mindset in sports, just generally, a little more patience could go a long way, like a little more with the right people. And if you're just going to promote within the organizations, why do that? How does like how does this happen? You know, it feels like such an error of human judgment, but we look at these teams and we're like, okay, why are they firing this coach? It seems like everybody's like following a trend, everybody's doing the same thing. In your experience covering, you know, sports, what do you think about like the landscape of the NFL and why these teams like the moves are so questionable?
Well, I think the thing to remember about McDermott, and this is the same thing with John Harbaugh in Baltimore. I mean, Harbaugh had that job for 18 years. Like I think it's 18. How long are you supposed to keep it? You know what I mean? Like at some point your time is up. With McDermott been there 9 years. That's a similar case. And no coach and quarterback had ever been together as long as McDermott and Josh Allen, or as long as Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson, without making the Super Bowl. It had never happened before. So I feel like in those two cases, they got their time, right? What they never were was just like abjectly terrible. But that's not always the point. I think we have a tendency to look at it when a coach gets fired as though they are being blamed for everything. And that's not really how it works, man. Like sometimes you just get let go, right? It's just what it is. There's a change that people feel like need to be made. And then it goes from there. Remember with Harbaugh, he got the patience because Lamar saved his job in 2018. They were getting ready to fire him then. And then they got it going once they put Lamar into the starting lineup. So I do think that there are cases where teams are not patient enough and perhaps could stand to wait a little longer. But the thing I think is worth noting and always remember is those teams know their situations better than we do, and they know things that we don't. And so when the people who are around every day look around and make the decision and say, hey, man, I think we need to make a change, then chances are a change needed to be made. It looked like in 2023 that there was a chance that McDermott would get fired, you know? So I think with those two guys, you could argue that they actually got some patience. Just somebody there decided that to get this done, they needed to shake things up. And in the NBA, you can't really change the player, so you change the coach. Like that happens a little bit more over there. The NFL is a very similar place. If the quarterback is already there, then what's the next big change that you can make? Then the coach becomes that.
That's a great point. We're in an interesting time. I mean, I guess this is general with sports. Like the players are the product and the players are what we're like kind of putting our Lamar Jackson is who's going to take us to the Super Bowl. We can kind of replace the coaches and whatever, but we need him and he needs to have the best relationship and the most hope possible with whoever's in that seat. So speaking of quarterbacks, by the way, are we seeing Aaron Rodgers again next year? Because
That's a Does he still want to do this?
that's after that last game. That was my question too. I'm thinking, okay, after seeing the way he was treated by the Texans, ain't no way. You could see in his eyes, I'm too old for this shit. Like,
Yeah, I have the same question for him that I have for LeBron James at this point. Like, do you really still want to do this? And at least with LeBron, they pay you $50 million to run around. Like Aaron Rodgers, I don't even know what they paid him, but it ain't just to run around. It's also to get hit. And I understand the people who look at the Steelers hiring Mike McCarthy, which none of us saw coming, and, Rodgers' former coach. And they're like, did you do this to keep Aaron Rodgers? Even that wouldn't make sense because, I mean, they fired him in Green Bay. Like, we thought that that was a change that Aaron Rodgers also wanted. But he can't keep doing this. And even if he does want to keep doing this, that can't be the Steelers' plan A. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be another idea for what we're going to do at quarterback. Because he's not going to be better than he was last year. That's not how getting old works.
right. And getting hit is only gonna feel worse as the years go on. I could only imagine, like, let alone just going to the gym, just doing anything. Getting hit by a 300-pound ain't no way I would still be. And don't you want to go out on top? Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's the problem. That wanting to go out on top is what makes people keep coming back because they ain't on top. They keep thinking I got a little bit more, and then it goes at this point where he gonna come back and next year and be like, you know what? I haven't been in this good a shape in 10 years, right? They start telling those lies. That's how you know they old.
last throw was a pick six. That is what made me think, okay, maybe there will be one more year, but the Steelers got to figure it out. Look, why does it feel like we're in like a quarterback shortage. I feel like everybody would talk about it. It's like, okay, well, what are they going to do at quarterback? Their quarterback is old. Their quarterback's getting old. It's like, are the college quarterbacks like not that great? What's going on?
So I think there are people who have questions about development, whether or not we are preparing quarterbacks to be ready at this level and everything else. My take is a hot one that I've never heard anybody else bring this up, but all those years back in the day where everybody just ran the ball, ran the ball, ran the ball. In my mind, it's not because all those people were stupid and simply primitive and antiquated. It's that throwing the ball is really, really hard. And so as the game has progressed and the offenses have become more and more sophisticated, and in some cases less sophisticated because they're working off these college offenses, so they're just trying to give guys easy keys that they can look at before they make a decision. The part that hasn't changed is that throwing the ball, especially the later the year goes on, is really hard. So you can put up these great regular season stats in September, October, November, and they stack up. But what does that mean when it's January and it's freezing cold and it's snowing? Now it's even harder for you to throw the ball. So I think that there will always be a quarterback shortage in the NFL because I think it's just that hard to play quarterback.
Yeah, it's a tough job, and even to get considered and to get drafted and to get them to even have the want to develop you and to give you a chance if you're not playing it's a lot, and not everybody can do it. But it just feels like everybody's having a quarterback issue. It's crazy. I will say two teams that are not having quarterback issues, the Patriots and the Rams. Let's talk about this MVP conversation. I know we had a different look at these guys through the playoffs, and that doesn't matter, but it does make you kind of look at them a little different, like, is this? It doesn't matter for the voters, but based on what you've seen this season, who is your NFL MVP?
I lean towards Stafford. Like, I think that the argument against Stafford is that he had the best pair of wide receivers in the league. When I have watched Stafford this year, and I am a pretty harsh Stafford critic, but when I've watched him this year, I haven't seen anybody who's looked as good as he has, man. He can just throw the ball. Like, he's going to give you a chance or two a game to turn it back the other way. But I don't think anybody played better football than he did this year. And they had, maybe it's the argument they didn't win the division. They didn't have a 14-3 record or anything like that. To me, that's not the point. I would go with Stafford. But again, I think the argument for Drake May is not a bad one. But whenever I've seen Stafford, I've just shook my head, just amazed at what it looks like. The fact that somehow it's year 17 and he has continued to get better, I've never seen anything like that.
Right. It makes you think, how long is he going to want to do this, right? How much longer is he going to want to do this for?
Well, remember the beginning of this year, we weren't sure he was going to play at all because we thought he had this back injury and they didn't have him do anything in training camp, right? Like, he's won an MVP. He's won a Super Bowl. People seem very ready already to put him into the Hall of Fame. Like, it's fair to ask if there's anything left for him to accomplish. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the only reason he plays. But if if he has something else he wants to get done, I'd be curious to know what it is.
Right, because he kind of has all those stamps on his record that everyone like waits for to be in certain conversations, like the quarterbacks we were talking about earlier. It's interesting. We've talked about a lot of quarterbacks today. Okay, we talked about Lamar Jackson, we talked about Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, Drake May, and you say particularly you're a harsh critic on Matthew Stafford. Why is that?
I believe that he, throughout his career, has been the least scrutinized number one overall pick that there has ever been, right? It's not to say that he's not good or there have not been points where he hasn't been good, but when he has not been excellent, it's always been somebody else's fault, right? You blame it on playing in Detroit. That's the big one. But I mean, I don't know if you looked around the last few years, Detroit does okay. It's not just this kryptonite, right? Why is it if he is this surefire Hall of Famer, or I hear people try to say now top 10 quarterback of all time, he never elevated the situation that he had in Detroit. Like, I know what it looks like when it's a great quarterback playing on a bad team or playing for a bad roster. And that's not what it felt like. It felt like he was a very talented quarterback who was not necessarily as good as his talent indicated that he could be. Even in this stretch in Los Angeles. I mean, obviously they won the Super Bowl, but for the most part, he has been very good. But we have not thought of him as one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. That's where we have put Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, and Burrow. We have never put Stafford in that place. So for me, it gets to be a little bit tricky when we start like adding him to a historical pantheon that I'm like, we never talked about this before. This is just something for people to say right now. Like if that's what you believe back then why has the man only been a 3-time Pro Bowler coming into this season, right? Kirk Cousins has done that more than he has. And it doesn't mean that the Pro Bowl is the be all end all, but year after year, you guys looked at him and did not decide that he was one of the 3 best quarterbacks in his conference. So I don't understand how it is that now we're making him one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time. That's what it is. He's not bad, but I'm not going for it the way that other people are.
It is a good point. Watching the NFL, the more and more you pay attention, it's like there are some guys that when they play good, it's, oh my gosh, fireworks, light it up. We're talking about every day, bottom of the ticker, obsessed. And when he's playing bad, we just don't talk about him at all. we just leave him off the show. We just don't even mention it. And then there are some guys that, oh, he did good. He's supposed to do good. He's supposed to. That's what we expect from him. And then when he does bad, it's the biggest deal in the world. So I don't know how, we choose who those people are. But very interesting to me when covering the NFL. It just feels like we treat everybody a little bit different.
Hey, man, we're human beings. And there it goes from there.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I mean, we've got a few good number 1 picks that have come out recently. Like Caleb Williams looks pretty great. So, hey,
yeah.
Now, before we go, now I already got your pick for the Super Bowl. I already got your pick for MVP. I just got to ask you, okay, ending this NFL season, when you look back, what was the biggest shocker for you?
The biggest shock to me was that the Chiefs and the Ravens missed the playoffs. Never dawned on me coming into this year. Like the question was, are the Chiefs going to go to the Super Bowl for a 4th straight year? I don't know. That's going to be a little bit tricky. And then it got to a place where they weren't going to win their division. It's like, oh, okay, that happens. Then they're eliminated and Patrick Mahomes tears his ACL. Like that, to me, I did not think would happen. And I thought the Ravens coming into this year may have had the most talented roster in the NFL. And they were both sitting at home. Like those to me were the 2 things that there was no way you ever could have told me coming into the year. Maybe one of them happened because it's the NFL, right? And there's randomness abounds. Both of those things happening, no way.
The Eagles didn't shock you at all?
At this point, nothing can shock me with them. They could go 17-0, and that wouldn't shock me. They could go 6-11, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are fighting the offensive coordinator and the head coach at midfield. Neither outcome would surprise me.
It's like a toxic relationship. It's like when they're good, they're so good, but when they're bad, they're so messy.
And by the way, when they're bad, they're still good enough that you don't feel like you should change anything. But it's so messy. I just don't. Never seen anything like it. You got a coach that's been to 2 Super Bowls in 5 years and has won 1, and none of us know if he's any good.
Listen, I like to call them the Real Housewives of the NFL. That's really what it feels like. Bomani, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to see if your predictions come true. Matthew Stafford MVP, Seahawks Super Bowl. We're rooting for Sam Darnold. Who would have known in the Super Bowl? Thank you so much for joining us this week. Y'all, thank you for another week of Revolt Sports Weekly. Make sure to subscribe to Revolt Sports and follow us on social media so you can be a part of the conversation. Bye.